Hello, and welcome to the live demo for ReadySetMath, my first research project at Maastricht University. Students that start a master's program often have different backgrounds and need to be on the same page before they start the program in order to succeed. In the past, this was done manually. So tests were given out, then teachers sat and corrected these tests and then gave recommendations based on their results. Our solution then was to entirely automate this process, from test generation to correction to providing recommendations based on these results. And we made a website for this. Let's take a look at how it works. We start at the login page, which does some pattern matching to catch some wild input, things like numbers in your name or letters in your university ID. Since this is made for students at we expect them to enter their official university email. Let's quickly correct this input and move on. Our test contains 5 math topics, these ones to be precise, and can be given by advanced high school students or undergraduate students in the first year. Before they start their test, they're expected to enter their familiarity. We don't ask them questions that they've never seen before. Let's assume, for example, that I've never studied real functions before this. And now I get a custom test for myself based on my background. All I now need to do is solve these questions and enter my input in a way that the computer can understand. But hints abound. From the math notation help drop down that always remains up top to individual hints at each question, it's fairly clear what I'm expected to do. Besides this, we also have support for rendering things in LaTeX, for example, matrices. So maybe I'm not sure what this looks like. If I simply click the submit button, I can see what this is, what my answer is interpreted as. And don't worry, you can change at any time before the final submit. As you would have noticed, there are 2 types of questions in the test. One are hard-coded questions, things for graph matching, for example, or formulas in math, standard math formulas, like sine of x plus y. In the future, this could also include proofs for theorems. Another type of question are randomized or so-called parameterized questions. So things like the coefficients for linear equations and the constant themselves, matrices, the values for the matrices, and in calculus, the limits and the functions that are generated. Let me quickly attempt trigonometry before submitting this test. This is all the student needs to do. The rest, as promised, should be automated. So let's call it quits and hit the final submit button. Wait a while. Results. I see my score. I also see all my answers, what I got wrong and what was expected for each question, whether I got it correctly or incorrectly, and what the correct answer should be in that case. Besides this, I also see my score and I get 2 sets of recommendations. One for things that I've seen but need to improve, and the second for things that I haven't seen but will need soon in my course. Among other things, I was responsible for designing the logic for this recommendation algorithm. But stats are boring, so let's look at some visuals. In the student dashboard, I see my strengths. This is a radar chart. Things that are closer to the boundary indicate strength, and things closer to the center indicate things I'm weak at. Obviously, I'm quite good at trigonometry, but calculus, not so much. I also see my familiarity with each topic. This can help me understand and remember my scores and also interpret them. Ah, but what happens once I close this website? Do I lose all this? Fear not. Everything you see here is sent to your email. And if things work well, this we should have received an email right now. So let's check. Aha, here it is. So I have my answers, the two sets of recommendations and their links in order, because the order in which I studied these is important. So I study derivatives before I look at limits, and then I look at, and after differential calculus, I then move on to integral calculus. Or for example, linear equations, I start out with linear equations, then go to matrix multiplications, and then inverses. The order of these recommendations is also important. I also see this CSV file. But who is this for? This is really for the teacher. We also built a student dashboard for the teacher, where all they need to do is collect all these CSV files one per student, put them in one Excel sheet, and upload this here. And they're greeted with some visuals. These are all interactive plots, and this tells them, so you can look at student scores, the mean and median, and which student scored how much. You also see the mistakes per topic, and this helps identify the strongest topics and the weakest topics. We also see familiarity per topic. So, of all the students that took the test, what are they most familiar with and what are they least familiar with? This can help a teacher use their time more productively when designing the courses. This then was the demo for ReadySetMath. A more detailed version of how this works, the boring stuff, is written in an article which I have linked in the YouTube description. Thank you for watching.